The silent castle is shrouded in the night. All the windows are covered with black curtains and drapes. The building's hall was filled with people in mourning clothes, shedding tears, and the voices that came from behind the black curtain. 15-year-old Nina, a member of the Order of the Black Beast, is our heroine. The rumors that filled the halls visibly irritated her. The guy laughed and said that Nina's manner of speech reminded him of Jean. Nina shouted that all the rumors were nonsense. Adrian, the captain of the Knights, responded, "It's partly true. He was an illegitimate child. He was 16, Nina said. They need to stop talking nonsense. He is not to blame for the death of that woman's son. Lord, at first glance, looks gentle. They have been friends since childhood. Duke Ruane had 3 sons, Adrian, Gerald, and Aiden. Of course, the twins had a better chance, but the Duke did not have time to change the right of succession. So Adrian is also an heir. Recently, the eldest of the twins was killed, and now it is obvious what actions the grief-stricken Duchess will take. However, of course, this is one side of Hadrian. But with such an outlook on life, how is he going to survive in this world? When their order was going on reconnaissance in the Purple Forest, Nina wanted with all her might to stay with the Lord. The Lord cannot be left alone at such a time. There was a knock on the door and Nina checked who it was. There was no sign of the butler from the moment they arrived here. So why did he suddenly appear? The butler said he had messages from the Duchess. She asked me to tell you that she wants to have tea with Adrian, and she wanted Adrian to join her right now. It was impossible to refuse the Duchess, so I had to go. The Duchess poured tea and said she was glad he had come. Nina looked at the tea with disbelief, and the Duchess said that in recent days, thoughts had visited her. Gerald was such a smart and obedient child. Adrian replied that his death had left her emotionally wounded. The Duchess thanked him for his words and admitted that she had a request. As soon as Adrian touched the mug, Nina snatched it away. Without further ado, Nina drank the tea. Her guess was correct. There was poison in the tea. And it worked immediately. Nina fell, coughing up blood. It hurt more than she thought. Her body was burning. It felt like her organs were melting, and yet she thought, how could Adrian have survived if he had taken a sip? The body did not move, but Nina wanted to protect the Lord. Adrian kept calling Nina when he suddenly heard laughter. The Duchess said that we must abandon this worthless servant. It's time to drink tea. She didn't even hide her true intentions. The servants lifted Adrian and helped him sit at the table. They tried to seat him to die, but it was not to be. Adrian had suffered enough, and it was time to act. He cast a spell, darkness, tear apart all my enemies. Grind them into dust. The skeletons grabbed the servants in a chain. The servants shouted at their mistress to run away. They couldn't cope with Adrian. The lady screamed. Adrian thinks that after this his life will become calm. But he didn't listen. Adrian held Nina tightly. The rain was pouring down, and Adrian ran under it, holding Nina. All the time he asked her not to leave him, Nina was conscious. She wondered if he managed to escape, would he remember? The body was getting colder, but at the same time it was burning. Spirits have difficulty getting rid of the poison. Everything seems gloomy, as if Nina is falling into icy water. She feels sleepy, but memories of the past come flooding back. It's like my whole life is flashing before my eyes. The day it all began, the day she remembered life in another world. Her life was ordinary but poor. They lived in the village. She grew up in a loving family with kind parents, but trouble came. Their parents died, and the misfortunes did not end there. On her 5th birthday, she remembered her past life, and I realized that inside the novel there was a past life in which there was no loss of loved ones. Life that flowed so peacefully and beautifully that it brought tears to my eyes. But the memories of 2 worlds filled her mind, and this came as a shock to her. The little girl froze. It happened that her thoughts became intertwined, causing her to scream in pain. Her family didn't know how to help her in such moments. Nina screamed that she was not Nina. This was not her house, and they were not her family. She screamed that she wanted to go home, and this is not the first time she ran away from home. People thought that she simply couldn't accept the death of her parents, and little by little he begins to lose his mind. But Nina didn't think so. She said that she was never Nina. They are all wrong and know nothing. Her brother finally found her. Nina noticed that her brother's leg was bloody. He said that he had simply lost a shoe and suggested that they go home for something to eat. My sister bought a lot of goodies that Nina loves and is waiting for. The 2 of them returned home and Bella met them. She was able to breathe a sigh of relief when she saw that Nina was okay. Bella suggested that their little Nina go home. Then Nina accepted her family. She threw the chaos out of her head, and she moved forward, although memories of the past still lingered. But once the chaos was overcome, the memories became a part of her, and before she knew it, they had merged with her. Nina has become completely integrated into the life of this family. Thanks to her knowledge, they decided to take her to a city school. The brother and sister loved their little sister, and Nina herself loved them. She was happy with them. Alas, the happiness was short-lived. A monster attacked and took away her last happiness. Nina was returning home when the city was engulfed in flames. However, the little girl never saw her home or loved ones, only ruins engulfed in flames. And the bodies of the brother and sister are under this rubble. After the monster, bandits attacked, and she became not only an orphan, but even as a slave, Nina was freezing and felt sleepy. And when she opened her eyes, she found herself in an unfamiliar place. Something told her she could get up and move on. Her sincere words will help her in any situation, and anyone will see the sparkle in her eyes and determination. Opening her eyes, Nina did not understand what she saw, whether it was her relatives or something else. But it helped her calm down a little. She missed her family, and so she decided to live for them, and a couple of weeks later she found herself in Ruvain's mansion. Nina became a maid. The eldest said that she would tell her everything. There is a duke and a duchess in the family. The lady recently gave birth. Nina should explore the mansion during her breaks. The duke has an illegitimate son, Adrian. Nina realized that this was the same Adrian, the main character of the novel. In the novel, the villain tries to defeat the Spirit Master in order to destroy the world. The saint and the protagonist joined forces and saved the world. Nina thought that her happy life that had sunk into oblivion was connected to the affair. The eldest warned that the Duchess did not like Adrian. Therefore, Nina should avoid him at all costs. Since the Duchess gave birth, Adrian is about 10 years old. This situation is from an early moment, before the beginning of the novel. Nina was happy because she knew everything. She will be able to help the baby, just as her brother and sister helped her, so she has to save Adrian. The bird told us that there was a new child in the mansion, not from the nobility, but the sad Hadrian believed that all people are the same. A week later, Nina was washing dishes, not listening to the others. But she didn't just do that, everyone gave her instructions. She ran like a mouse on a wheel, doing a lot of things at once, helped others with their assignments and tasted the Duchess's dishes. One little girl was given several tasks in a couple of minutes. Of course, the baby quickly ran out of breath. All that was left was to set the table, so Nina was given a break. Nina was worried, but glad that she quickly adapted to this life. Everyone is just sensitive, working in the kitchen is hard work. But in reality, everyone is very kind to Nina. Nina asked her sister and brother not to worry about her. After all, she was working hard, and suddenly there was a noise. The lady came to them, and everyone immediately got scared. Madame asked what brought her here. The lady said Adrian stopped coming to lunch. She ordered that food be stopped from being sent to his room. Madame, of course, was surprised that she had angered her mistress. Adrian is just a child if she wants to spit poison. For this there is an unfaithful husband, the lady threatened Madame. And then to everyone else, so that they behave as they should. The atmosphere was tense when the lady was with them. As soon as she left, everyone quickly exhaled, and they began to complain that not feeding Adrian was cruel. Nina asked if the lady hated Adrian. The eldest answered yes. And the situation is getting worse. The lady recently gave birth. But the unfaithful husband showed no interest, and the lady asked to deprive Adrian of his status. But the husband ignored this too. The Duke doesn't show concern for anyone. He seems to only care about himself. Nina suddenly declared that even if this were true, starving someone was atrocious. She asked if she could secretly bring him food. The elders began to shout, "Nina!" that she did not hear the mistress. However, the madam stood up for Nina. The child cannot be starved. She asked Nina to do everything quietly and come back quickly. Nina took up the work with enthusiasm. This is what Adrian's building looks like. It's empty and a bit creepy here. It looks like they don't even clean it. Nina was very interested to see Adrian's face. In the novel, there was almost no talk about him. There were rumors, but they were all false. Adrian had manners. He was calm and graceful, but Fiona felt the coldness behind his smile. That's why she fell in love with the main character. Nina thought it was stupid. If she had the choice, she would choose a modest gentleman. Knocking, Nina entered the room with a bright smile and said that she had brought food for the young master. But she received nothing in response. Little Adrian was quietly reading his book. He didn't even look up. He seemed distant and cold. Little Nina was shocked by the complete neglect. And yet she began attempt 2, happily describing the food and how it was prepared. Even after that, Adrian did not look at Nina or say a word. Nina felt awkward, so she didn't know what else to say. So I just left the food on the table and headed for the exit. Before leaving, she asked Adrian to eat before it got cold and left. There was still no response from Adrian. However, as soon as Nina left, Adrian raised his head and a sparkle appeared in his eyes. It seemed like the baby felt seen for the first time, and Nina returned to work. She was full of energy after visiting the young master. Nina thought that everything would go great because she knew the future. On the other hand, Adrian is the second main character who suffered all his life. He was abused as a child, his body was covered in wounds, and he fought monsters. There was an attempt on his life, which affected his health, and his knights were killed. After all this, Adrian will close himself off and remain a monster hunter. This will lead to depression. The situation improves a little with the appearance of Fiona. Thanks to her, they found the mine deposits, and then Nina thought that Adrian would start a lucky streak in life. But the Duchess slipped him poison, and Adrian dies a senseless death, a complete mockery of the second main character. Therefore, Nina decided that she would not allow such an ending for him, and he won't allow him to be immersed in a depressive life story. She doesn't care about the original story, it's her life, which means it's a new original. She will live it the way she wants. For this, she needs to become friends with him. The eldest asked Nina to take a break for a second. The little girl was so carried away that she didn't notice that she had made a mountain of dough. Nina apologized for this, but the older one came up with something. She offered to share the baked goods with Adrian. Nina decided that this was her chance to get closer. This will give a little bit of happiness to the young lord. She decided that sweets could pull Adrian back from the abyss. Little Adrian was bandaging his wounds when there was a knock on his door. Opening the door, he saw a basket of bread and a note from Nina. Nina believed that no one would refuse bread, and so they could become friends. Every day, Nina brought food to Adrian with a smile. But he continued to ignore Nina. The baby wasn't about to give up 3 months later. She brought food and talked about how she prepared everything. 3 months of daily ignoring, Nina still did not want to give up. She followed him every day and brought him food. With the food, she gave him topics for conversation. It's been 6 months already, half a year of ignoring, and even our furious little one's ardor has diminished. She stood at the door and was sad that she had not made any progress in her friendship with Adrian. When suddenly the door swung open, little Adrian was frightened to see Nina in front of him. But Nina quickly picked up on the situation and talked about the dishes with a smile. However, Adrian slammed the door behind him. The little girl was upset that she failed again. Anna left, leaving the dishes at Elsa's door. It seemed that Adrian himself understood that it was rude, but he was still too shy to start a conversation. It's not surprising, since he has been faced with such bad treatment all his life. Madame asked what was bothering Nina, since she was sighing so heavily. Nina explained that she wanted to make friends, but all her efforts were in vain. The lady replied, "What is he doing? Their Nina is such a cutie." Nina replied that he didn't seem to like all her efforts. It felt like friendship was new to him. The elder explained that everyone needs their own time to open their heart. If you approach him sincerely, one day he will open his heart. The elder one gave a bribe that it could help in friendship. Having taken the gift from her eldest, Nina hurried to Adrian. Butter cookies, butter, rare things from excess. It's no wonder there was such a fuss. She was glad that Adrian might like it, because he hadn't had anything like this for a long time. But there was something strange. There was no light in the extension. Nina realized that he should be having a fencing lesson now. It seems the lesson is not over yet. Nina ran to the training ground. She saw Adrian and his teacher and decided to take a look, but something happened that she never expected. Instead of a lesson, the teacher beat poor Adrian and swore at him. Moreover, this so-called teacher was drunk. He beat the unarmed Adrian without even thinking about holding back. The poor baby suffered beatings and insults. He was used to cruelty towards him. Adrian could erase this teacher with a wave of his hand. But this will not change anything. Another disgusting teacher will come, and the time of miserable days will begin again. He was always trapped in his own darkness, Adrian remembered. There is one amazing person who does not leave, although he pushes her away. But Adrian believed that in the end, she would also turn away from him. Although when he sees her happy face, his heart beats faster. Adrian himself did not understand why he suddenly began to remember Nina. He believed that someone like him had already become boring to her. He must have been shocked when Nina suddenly appeared. The brave little girl started beating up the disgusting teacher. Now she was insulting him and beating him. She screamed how the drunkard dared to hit a child. The man shouted back who she was. Then Nina proudly shouted, "Her name is Nina." "Let him not dare to offend the young master," Nina shouted at Adrian to run away. While she holds him back, Adrian was shocked and froze. The man threw Nina to the ground and Adrian shouted if she was okay. And the man reached for his sword. He decided to go to the end with them. The man really wanted to get rid of the children. So it was time for Adrian to call upon his powers. He called upon the darkness and chains bound the man. The man shouted that he was simply following the Duchess's orders. As if that made his actions any less painful, Nina, shocked by what she saw, froze in place. She knew Adrian was a summoner, but this was the first time she saw it in person. Nina wondered if he had made a pact with the spirit of darkness at such a young age. People become summoners when they need to believe in something strongly, out of desperation. So Nina is also a summoner. Adrian pulled Nina out of the abyss of thoughts. Adrian shouted as Nina was badly hurt. Nina shouted in shock, "Okay." Her mood dropped, so Adrian asked what was wrong. Nina explained that she had brought him cookies, but they had all crumbled. Then she asked if everything was okay with the young master. Unexpectedly, Adrian hugged Nina and told her not to worry about him. Later, Nina asked what if someone starts looking for a teacher. Adrian explained that he often drank and wandered, and no one would look for him. Nina shared a cookie with Adrian, and Nina herself was happy with the taste of the cookie. And Adrian was ashamed that Nina suffered because of him. He asked her not to do that again in the future. Nina asked why. Was it really because of this that he didn't run away but protected her? Perhaps the young master shares her feelings. She couldn't just stand there and watch him get beaten. Nina stood up and told Adrian that the star was falling. Adrian looked at her in surprise and said he didn't see anything. Nina said he blinked the whole thing the next time he saw a shooting star. "You need to make a wish, like this." Nina pinched her nose and said, "Let the new year be cake, cake, and only cake." Adrian didn't expect this at all, so he giggled. This is how the friendship between the two heroes began. It was already late, so Nina decided to say goodbye to Adrian. But then she thought, you can't call your master a friend. However, she will not leave Adrian alone, therefore. Nina called Adrian by name and suggested having a picnic tomorrow. The little girl was worried that she was overdoing it, because she was just a maid. Adrian quickly noticed her trembling hands and it seemed to touch him. Then he took Nina by the hand to support her and said, "Of course, he will be looking forward to tomorrow." Nina was genuinely pleased by this. She clearly had not expected such progress. The next day, they went for a picnic to a corner of the garden where no one goes. It was a wonderful picnic, with delicious bread and freshly brewed tea, the smell of flowers and warm rays of sunshine, and also Adrian. Adrian, who was not in the abyss of despair. She saw a happy Adrian. Nina was glad that she was finally able to become friends with him. 4 years later, Nina still sparkled with happiness, and their friendship remained strong. She brought a delicious cake and they began to eat together. Nina said that lately she has been hearing a lot about the Black Beast Order. They say it may be disbanded and a new order formed, as the mortality rate among the knights has reached 50%. If it's a matter of finances, the Duchess should cut back on spending. Then he wouldn't have to eat what she brings. But Adrian was satisfied with everything and thanked Nina for it. Nina replied, "You're welcome. They are friends after all." Adrian wiped the cream from Nina's cheeks and ate it, saying that the cream was delicious. It was difficult to hide Nina's red cheeks. So Nina hurried to work. Adrian said that he would like to chat some more. Adrian added, "May the blessing of the Great Spirit be with her." Nina wished him the same and added that she hoped the spirit would bless him. The winter was cold. Nina was in a hurry to return to the palace. "I was in such a hurry that I didn't notice someone coming out of the corner." The little one was unlucky. It was the Duchess, and she was not happy. And she said she didn't know that there was a rat in her house, such a dirty one. The Duchess ordered her hair cut and bathed so that she would be cleaner. The baby was thrown out into the cold, doused with water, and her beautiful hair was cut. They stripped her down to her underwear in the terrible cold, and of course the baby was on the verge of death. Luckily, Nina had good luck with her elders. They quickly dressed her and warmed her up. Just a little more and the baby would have frozen to death. And Adrian found Nina's ribbon in the hallway. When he went to return it to Nina, he saw her lying in bed, in poor condition, after 4 days spent on the brink of death. Nina finally woke up. Fortunately, the Duchess was no longer interested in her. She probably thinks that Nina died. If it weren't for the spirits, Nina would have definitely died. However, that wasn't the problem. Adrian started avoiding her again. He smears himself for a whole week so as not to talk to her. But our little one is not one to give up quickly. She was hiding behind the blanket when Adrian entered the room. He immediately said that he knew that Nina was there and that he didn't want to talk to her anymore, so he asks her to leave. Adrian did not receive an answer, so he went to bed. But as soon as he approached, Nina pushed him onto the bed. Adrian turned away, but Nina asked, ignoring him again. Then she said, he knows. He does this so that she doesn't get it again. But if this continues, he will lose his only friend. Adrian replied that if she stayed near him, she would get hurt again. This was the only way to avoid it, but Nina was strong in spirit. She asked, so what? She just wants to be friends with him. Then she suggested that they pretend not to know each other during the day, and in the evening they will chat. After a couple of seconds, Adrian agreed. From that day on, they began to see each other at night, when the Duchess's supervision was relaxed. Sometimes Adrian was worried, but when their eyes met, he smiled. And only this made Nina happy, but she had no idea what Adrian was thinking about, and 2 years later on Adrian's birthday, the Duke appointed him commander of the Order of the Black Beast. Nina screamed, he imagines how dangerous it is, the Duke is simply sending him to his death. Adrian only answered that it was not for nothing that he thought so. Nina knew that this would happen. But this is earlier than in the original. Adrian called Nina. Opening the box with a couple of coins and a pendant, Adrian said, this is his entire fortune. It is not much, but it can pay off the ransom debt. Adrian was ready to give all his fortune to free Nina. Only now did Nina realize that Adrian had already prepared for their separation. For the sake of her happiness, Adrian was ready to say goodbye to Nina because he only cares about her. Nina learned about Adrian's feelings and that he was worried about her. Then she realized that Adrian still didn't know the real her. He wants her to run away alone, but that won't happen. After Adrian left, she also prepared to leave the duchy. She managed to scrape together a decent amount of money, thanks to Adrian, her sisters, and her savings. Fortunately, joining the order was not difficult. After joining, she underwent 6 months of nightly training. Until she finally received an appointment to the order, Nina went on a trip. They reached the Purple Forest. The guy next to them said, everyone calls it the Purple Forest, but the trees look normal. Nina explained that this is the outskirts. The closer you get to the barrier, the more linden leaves you see. This is because the miasma of the fallen spirit master is leaking out. As soon as she started talking about perfume, the guys started laughing, but Nina had read about it in a novel. One spirit lord led a rebellion against other great spirits, but they were able to suppress the rebellion, and the fallen ruler was broken into pieces. And he fell to the ground, and since then, distorted life forms, Balaki, have appeared on the surface. That's why the order guards this place to prevent the Belacs from harming people. They arrived and everyone lined up. Nina was on pins and needles. This is the first time she will see him after a long separation. She thought how happy he would be to see her. The boys weren't happy to see their commander, because he was a child. Nina couldn't wait any longer. She jumped high and shouted, "Nina is here!" The young master sees that it is she. Everyone was shocked by her behavior, and Adrian's face sparkled not with happiness but rather with bewilderment. He quickly took her into the building and asked her what she was doing there. Nina answered because she had become a knight. Adrian sighed wearily, and he said, "This is not a place where you come on a whim. She doesn't even know how to handle a sword." Nina interrupted Adrian when he said that she could die here. She told him that she had hidden something from him, that it could also summon spirits. "Since I met him, my sister and brother were killed by Belak." She didn't want to relive those painful memories, so she hid it. But now she will no longer hide her abilities. Because there is someone she wants to protect, life is a series of white and black stripes. And only she has the power to turn black stripes into white ones, so she came here to find her happiness. He didn't have to feel guilty, and she was told she had talent in fencing. Adrian asked if she said she would stay on his side. Nina answered yes. Then Adrian replied, "She might regret it." Nina said, "Never." Finally, Adrian gave in and said he couldn't argue with her. He admitted that he had missed her all this time, and they hugged. After that, he and Adrian began to improve the Order of the Dark Knights. To make it possible for people to live here, Adrian will reconsider the structure and methods of training. And Nina actively brought the estate to cleanliness, cleaning everywhere. She cleaned up dirty linens, terrible food. She did everything she could so that people who lived without hope could begin to look forward to tomorrow. People who seemed like they would never change. They started asking what the menu would be for tomorrow and began greeting each other warmly. After 2 years, more and more people remained in the order voluntarily. During the meal, the man said he had been wondering about this for a long time. Who are they to each other? They are not just friends, right? He shouldn't rush things. The guys exchanged glances, and they naively replied, "This is friendship, the most real friendship." The man replied that if they were just friends, then he had no friends at all. Nina told him not to blame them for his unpopularity. During this time, they became not just comrades, but a family. But not so long ago, a letter arrived from the duchy, stating that young Master Gerald had passed away. Then Nina became nervous, because she knew very well what would happen next. This alleged incident where Adrian was poisoned will definitely happen again, and Nina must stop it. Despite arguments and persuasion, Nina followed Adrian to attend the funeral. As expected, the Duchess invited Adrian to her place for tea. Nina imagined herself abruptly knocking the cup of poisoned tea out of Adrian's hands and shouting, "It's poison!" But before she had time to come to her senses, she simply drank the tea. There was probably no other choice but to drink it. But she doesn't remember very well what happened after that. He was so cold and wanted to sleep. It feels like someone keeps calling her name. Nina was right. Adrian ran, holding her in his arms and calling her all the time. He asked her not to leave him. Her breathing was too weak. At this rate, Nina would not survive. As soon as this thought flashed through Adrian's head, he froze. His hands began to shake, but not from cold or fatigue. Adrian noticed the darkness and thought that if he jumped straight into the darkness, he had never tried that before. But he had no time to think. He began to read the spell, addressing the darkness. Darkness that needs neither path nor light. It just takes him to a safe place. Adrian ran through this darkness, and it actually led him back to the Order's estate. The man asked the commander, who ran all the way here, what happened. Choking with tears, Adrian asked to bring Kirill. He could not explain what had happened now. Nina was taken to a room, and the members of the Order gathered there. Kirill was the healer. Kirill was unhappy and asked Adrian what the hell happened. A gloomy Adrian replied, "Nina drank the poison instead of him. A large amount of blood came out of her, and it looked like she wasn't breathing. Her body temperature was very low, and he ran as fast as he could." Louis and Jean told Adrian to calm down. She was a strong girl. Everything would be fine. Kirill began to examine Nina's body. He smiled and said, "Well, at least this is something." She lowered her body temperature to slow the spread of the poison. He thinks she will succeed. Kirill asked her to bring him some herbs from the greenhouse. And our Nina, still unconscious, was thinking, "It's quiet here. It's probably not so bad to rest peacefully like this." But it was not to be. The poison reached her body and a sharp, unbearable pain pierced Nina. Nina began to scream in terrible pain. Kirill shouted for Adrian to hold her arms and legs tightly. Because her body functions have returned to normal, she feels an indescribably strong pain. "She has to go through this," Nina continued to scream, and Kirill said something. But Adrian didn't listen to him. Nina's pain was unbearable for Adrian. He held her hands tightly. It was clear that Adrian was angry. A sunny morning arrived. Our baby finally came to her senses. Nina got up and said that she slept so well. However, her joy did not last long. The pain made itself known. It felt like her body had been thoroughly beaten. Kirill entered the room, and he said he starts screaming as soon as he opens his eyes. A village near the purple forest. "He came here for a short time to take care of her treatment," Nina asked. "So Adrian brought her here from the duchy." Kirill replied, "Yes, a week ago, I would never have thought that I would see such an expression on the commander's face. She's really excited about everyone. It's time to grow up." Her throat, mouth, and stomach were severely damaged by the poison. Even her organs were not functioning properly. He will do everything in his power, but at least 6 months of rehabilitation will be required. Before she could return, Nina replied, "6 months is too long." She is confident that 2 months will be enough. So 2 months later, our bright Nina returned to the Order. Jin asked if after just 2 months she was really okay. Nina replied, "More alive than ever." Even Kirill confirmed this, and then Louis and Jean calmed down. Jin suggested throwing a party to celebrate her return. Nina said he just needed an excuse to drink. Jean admitted she had caught him out. Adrian, by the way, was standing nearby, but he was listening to some guy. Perhaps he was so engrossed in his work that he didn't say hello to Nina. Although the reason may have been different, Adrian and Nina ignored each other. During the night, little Nina was dying. It seems it was still too early for her to drink. By the way, Adrian never showed up, citing work as an excuse. She was worried about him, wondering if he was okay, when suddenly the door quietly swung open. Adrian stood on the threshold. He seemed very sullen, even angry. Just as Nina was about to ask what happened, Adrian interrupted her. He asked why she did it. She knew there was poison in it. Nina asked if Adrian was angry. Adrian was silent for a couple of seconds. Then, entering the room, he asked if he thought he was angry and why he would be angry. A loyal subordinate drank poison for him. Isn't that praiseworthy? He was lucky to have such a subordinate, Nina said. Okay, it's clear he's very angry. Nina asked Adrian to calm down, but Adrian suddenly shouted, "Don't say that. It's like he's overreacting to something so insignificant that it's nothing to her." "Don't say that," Adrian begged, his voice starting to tremble. It seemed like he was more angry at himself, because this time too, he could only watch from the sidelines as she suffered. Adrian was afraid that he would lose Nina, that she would leave him. Little Adrian could no longer hold back his tears. In truth, Adrian already knew that as long as Nina was around him, she would be harmed. When she wanted to join the knightly order, he should not have accepted her, Adrian believed. He believed that it was all his fault, that he had taken advantage of Nina's compassion. Adrian blamed himself for everything, and Nina understood this. She called him. And she said, as he said, she knew that the tea was poisoned. How could she not know? Smelling this unbearable stench, Adrian shouted, "Then why?" Nina asked, "Isn't it obvious?" Because Adrian was going to drink it, he knew everything too. And that's why he stopped her when she tried to check him first. From now on, Adrian better be prepared. If he tries to drink the poison, she will drink it instead of him. If she was going to take the blade, she would take it instead. Adrian replied that he made such a choice because, but Nina interrupted him. And she said that she had calculated everything in advance. She knows that he thinks that drinking it is the only way out. After all, he has some resistance to poisons, and even by simply fainting he can weaken the Duchess's observation. So she didn't do it just to save some pathetic gentleman. Nina asked what kind of face it was. Maybe she likes it, but she's not stupid, she knows. That their young master was not some naive lamb. Adrian lowered his eyes in embarrassment. He was ashamed. She decided to stay next to him, knowing everything, Adrian thought. Nina asked Adrian to sit down next to her because she wanted to tell her something. No matter how well it was planned, she asks him not to harm his body. If she dies without having done anything but good to others, she will be in despair. Adrian asked what about her? Nina replied. Then she promises that she will be careful too. In a forest teeming with Bellacs, he knows that this is the best promise a member of the Dark Knights can make. Adrian said she had to keep it no matter what in this world, to make a promise. You need to squeeze your palms together and look intently into each other's eyes. But in the morning, Nina was very tired and in no mood. Jin asked if Nina looked unwell and why didn't she skip patrol today. Nina explained that no, she just hadn't slept well after Adrian left yesterday. She had just sighed that incident number 3 was over when she remembered incident number 4. Namely, the complete destruction of the Dark Knights, and they had just begun to behave like a real order. What complete destruction? Even though Adrian is a minor character, isn't that too cruel? Nina was scared that she didn't know what was going to happen. She was worried until she fell asleep. And then she started having strange dreams, so she asked if their order was destroyed. What did he think the reason would be? Jin shouted. Why did she suddenly decide to ask such a terrible question? Nina replied, she just feels uneasy. Jin replied, it's scary to even imagine, but probably because they're broke. Their weapon, Lingxi steel, is so expensive that they cannot use the weapon to its full potential, and therefore they cannot properly cut the skin of high-ranking Bellacs. And if a group of high-ranking Bellacs attacks them, they will be completely destroyed. Nina screamed, this is too realistic. Now she is even more worried. Jin replied, however, the appearance of such Bellacs is a rare occurrence, so everything should be fine. And worrying about money won't magically solve their financial problems unless they accidentally stumble upon a steel mine. Then Nina remembered how Fiona found a mine in the Purple Forest, and it was a mine of Mun steel, better than Lingxi steel. But it was simply described as something she found by chance after being kidnapped. Nina herself has no idea where it is. She would search the forest alone if she could, but if she ran into a high-ranking Bellac, she would die. Even if we forget about Moon steel, simply acquiring a suitable weapon made of Lingxi steel would help a lot. Nina was wondering where they could get the money. She had to do something. The knights couldn't be allowed to die. She can't bear to lose her family anymore. Jin barely caught Nina when she slipped. Nina asked if it was oil. Jin replied that it looked like it was leaking from a fallen tree. Jin didn't understand why oil was leaking from the tree, but Nina explained that it was an olive tree. If you use it on lamps, they will smell nicer and burn brighter. This is the first time Jin has heard of such a thing. Fiona made lamps from this wood and made a huge fortune from it. Here it is, a way to earn money for their squad. Nina perked up again. If they use this oil, they will be able to make money. Later, Kirill asked if he wanted him to tell her about the herbs that grow in the purple forest. Nina replied, yes, she was going to grow a whole bunch and sell them at the market. Kirill didn't mind. The supply of medicinal herbs is always less than the demand, especially for herbs that grow only in the purple forest. The oil from this tree is very aromatic, so if it were sold as lamp oil, it would be popular. Kirill was surprised by Nina's knowledge, so she said she was just very interested in business. Then Kirill replied that in any case, it would be a good idea to try to save up some money, as supplies might stop in the future. The rumors about the duchy have been extremely bad lately. Either they have a lot of debt, or debt collectors come and go. Moreover, the royal guard continues to lose one exchange duel after another, and there are rumors that they don't even participate in the imperial tournament, a competition held between knights represented by each family for the right to use the crystal well. If they lose last year, which is the second defeat in a row, farming and livestock breeding will become problematic. At times like these, it seems as if Kirill has informants all over the territory. He has excellent healing skills so he can go anywhere, but why does he stay in such a small knightly order? Nina decided to ask directly why Kirill was in the Dark Knights. Kirill answered, because here he can dissect people as much as he wants. Cold shivers ran down Nina's spine, she said in any case. There is not a single sane person in this knightly order, Kirill asked. She understands that this applies to her too, right? The daily routine here is always the same: training, breakfast, patrolling the purple forest, and digging up useful plants. Nina dug up the plants that Fiona found here and planted them in the garden. Jin asked what it was. Nina replied, a transparent fruit. It will soon become a bestseller in their business. Because Fiona helped the Duchy of Rouvain get rich in this way. Instead, it would be better if Nina grew them in advance so as not to waste money later. Of course, Nina doesn't know when the young master will become a duke. Nina was plunged into dark thoughts. Would Adrian really kill his family with his own hands? She seethes with anger when she thinks about what the Duchess did, but if he is called an immoral son who killed his half-brother and father, Nina hates all this. She would rather die instead of him than allow him to be called an immoral son. However, if this happens, Adrian will not become duke, because the third young master is alive. Or an uprising, a coup? Is it possible without explanation? A voice was suddenly heard. Adrian asked, trying to do everything in one day. He came to find out what the commotion was. He heard. She enthusiastically took up weeding the grass in the purple forest. Nina replied that it was getting warmer, so now she should be diligently planting them. This way they would germinate well in the summer and she would collect them in the fall. Then Adrian decided to help her. Nina said she dug all the holes, so he just needs to move the greenery and seedlings. She showed Adrian how to properly plant seedlings in the ground. They finished closer to the evening. Adrian admitted that it was more difficult than he thought. Nina asked him. Now that the job is done, he feels good. Someday Adrian will become a duke. She intends to use this to restore the wealth of the territory. Adrian drooped and asked if Nina wanted him to become a duke. Nina noticed this drop in mood and whispered, "No, it's a secret." She just wants to make Adrian smile, Nina added with a bright smile. Well, she had already succeeded. Adrian actually smiled. He even laughed and said that Nina was asking for things that were too complicated. Nina asked, "What's so difficult about it? She's here." Adrian repeated, "That's right, she's here." And Nina said that even if Adrian doesn't become a duke, she has a plan. They will sell tons of goods through the trading guild and become rich. Then they will be able to eat cakes every day. Adrian revealed that he was soon going to create an elite squad to fight the high-ranking Bellacs. He will gather those who have good skills and evaluate them, because without competition they will fall behind. You need to be able to understand that things will only get more difficult from now on. Setting goals is his job. Adrian advised Nina to apply too. He is going to make long coats for the elite. It will suit her, Nina said excitedly. Then she will take care of the garden, and Adrian will take care of the Dark Knights. Nina asked Adrian to take care of her in the future. Adrian responded in the same way. From that day on, the test of selecting elite knights began. At the opening ceremony, the candidates who had made it into the elite squad were announced. But in the end, there were less than 10 elite knights who were finally selected, and on that list were the names Jin and Nina. Long cloaks are only given to elite knights, and Jin and Nina looked at the new uniform with admiration. There was just one tiny problem. It was too big for our little one. Louis assured her that she was still growing, so it would fit soon. Well, that was unlikely. Thus, several seasons passed, although they broke and bent. At the same time they grew, leaning on each other. So 2 years later, Nina was reaping her rich harvest. Now she was 17 years old. Despite the hard work, Nina was very pleased, even happy. After all, this is the result of 2 years of Nina's hard work. Of course, the little girl was proud of herself. She began to praise herself for her work. Nina should quickly go and show off to the young master, Nina decided. During this time, supplies became even more scarce, but thanks to the care of the garden, self-sufficiency became quite possible. The Get Rich on Dark Nights project will be great if everything continues like this. At least that's what Nina thought, right up until the moment she saw it. The huge triangle didn't bode well, Nina quietly said. They were finished. She started looking for any other traces, but so far she hadn't seen anything. Who could come to this damned forest except crazy cultists? Nina was in a panic. She started screaming in anger, repeating that she was in total trouble. Due to the villain's plot, the Dark Nights were destroyed, and Adrian suffered irreversible emotional trauma. 100%, there is no doubt about it. This is the same incident. Nina did not know what to do. She has to stop him no matter what. She can't lose her family. Nina began to talk sadly about how she even got here, why she was such a careless idiot. Then she stood up abruptly and said, "No, the incident hasn't even started yet, right? First we need to go back and report it. Since they detected it at an early stage, it won't be that difficult to deal with." Nina tuned herself to positive thinking. If you think about it, nothing special happened. They were almost lucky. When suddenly everything started to swim before their eyes, Nina fell. Nina was trapped by a flower monster. It seemed the vines of this flower were poisonous. Nina was paralyzed. This is a separate species of Belak. Every time the flower leaves move, poison spreads throughout the body. Nina decided to hold her breath as long as she could, but she didn't know how long she could last. She needed to deal with him quickly. She needed to hurry. Nina called upon her powers, asking the north wind to sweep away everything in its path. Frost, she asked to freeze and tear everything apart using her cutting breath. Having thrown herself out of the flower vine, Nina quickly destroyed the monster. However, it was not possible to avoid a wound. Nina was unable to get up. Unfortunately, Nina twisted her ankle, making it more difficult to reach the estate. Another problem is that her medicinal herbs are all spoiled. What a waste! But Nina doesn't have time to sit around doing nothing. We need to get back quickly and warn the guys as expected. Nina couldn't get there on her own, so she had to use her own strength to do it. Only Jin was standing in front of the entrance. Nina was finally able to reach the estate and called Jin. Seeing Nina's condition, Jin shouted what happened to her. Nina only laughed nervously. That's why Jin shouted, "Nina just came out of the forest. Why is she alone?" Two-person teams are a rule that even newbies follow. Jin would have continued to scold Nina. But Nina interrupted him and said that she would listen to his lecture later, that she had to tell everyone that someone had installed a barrier, a magic circle. She was just about to inform the temple when suddenly blood started flowing from Nina's nose. And a couple of seconds later, Nina fell to the ground, losing consciousness, and did not respond to Jin's cries. Jin quickly carried Nina to the estate, where Kirill examined her again, and the others also came to check on her. Kirill said that Nina would be fine with such a concentration of poison. She would recover quickly. The real problem is an ankle injury. Nina will not be able to participate in fights for several weeks. Adrian let out a breath, and Jin started cursing again, asking how deep into the forest she had gotten alone. As soon as she gets better, they will scold her well. Then Adrian asked if Jin had found out about the magic circle that Nina had spoken about. Jin replied, yes, they had done some reconnaissance and discovered an unfamiliar magical formation. Touching it would be reckless, so they left everything as is for now, Adrian thought, the barrier and the magic circle. There's only one person who could pull something like this off right now. The Duchess has been sitting quietly since her son's funeral. Did she really start acting again after that incident when Adrian disgraced her? She could very well take revenge on Adrian. That's exactly what Adrian thought. After a bit of silence, he said, they don't yet know what the enemy's goal is, but they won't be able to deal with the barrier on their own. It would be better to notify the temple. It seemed that Adrian had no intention of sharing his thoughts about the Duchess. Nina was still unconscious, but she found herself in a strange place, but this place was familiar to her. Again that unknown angel appeared before Nina. He again said that everything was fine. They will definitely meet again if she does, without having time to listen to the end of this unknown angel. Nina woke up. It seems that this time Nina forgot about this dream and about the angel. She threw off the blanket. She stretched happily and said how well she had slept, but they didn't let her get out of bed. Kirill hit her on the head and said, "Let the brat sleep as long as she wants." Nina screamed, "Why is Kirill beating the patient? Violence is bad." Kirill responded, "How much senseless speech." He brought her something to eat, then asked how many times this had happened. Everyone was so worried about her. Since Nina has an injured ankle, she must be a good girl. There will be no patrols today, and the Black Shield Fortress must be quiet. Nina asked why. Kirill answered, "Didn't she say that he discovered something wrong with the barrier?" They reported this to the temple, and they sent a priest, the commander, and the elite went to inspect the place. Nina hoped the temple acted quickly when it came to things like this, but she wasn't very knowledgeable about barriers herself, so she had no idea what to do, a problem that would probably be solved just as easily. But at that moment something dawned on Nina and she shouted, meaning that the entire elite had left. Kirill replied, "Yes, you never know what might happen." That is, they went on the attack, leaving no defense. As soon as Nina realized this, she jumped out of bed without a second thought. As she ran away, she thought how she could forget something so important, the final boss of this story. But she didn't have time to run away. Suddenly the glass in the windows broke at the same time. Nina froze in place, seeing a bunch of monsters in the sky. One can assume the worst. With all this happening, Nina completely forgot that the main villain of the story is the High Priest. Kirill asked what was happening, whether it was really from the side of the barrier. Nina shouted at him to run quickly to the fortress and help people evacuate immediately. Kirill shouted that she was going into the forest. In her current condition, she would definitely die there. But Nina turned around and asked Kirill to survive. That's all she said before running away. Kirill didn't know what to answer. He just stood there and watched as Nina ran away. Nina ran with the power of the wind to the place where a bunch of monsters were swirling. In just a couple of minutes, a whole flock of monsters emerged from that barrier, taking the boys by surprise. Jin shouted, "Why the hell are there so many monsters here? There is no end to them." Yes, it's too much for just him and Louis, because everyone else is already dead. It seemed like Jin was starting to give up. They really needed one more person. And his prayers were heard. Just at that moment, Nina appeared and immediately began to help. Jin shouted at her to ask what she was doing there, and Nina just apologized for being late. And then she asked where the young master was. Jin answered rather sadly, "The commander is over there." Nina ran to Adrian and saw that he was exhausted. Louis was not in the best condition either. Louis explained that everything was fine. The gentleman was still breathing. Jean shouted sharply behind her. Nina was attacked by a huge octopus, but she managed to block its attack. There's just one problem: an octopus doesn't have just one arm, but several, so Nina got hurt. So Nina decided to fight more seriously. Things were taking a bad turn. Nina yelled at the octopus to stay out of her way before stabbing her sword into the monster. And she succeeded. The huge monster died after one well-aimed blow. Nina got tired quickly, but that's because her body isn't in the best shape. So far, only one side of the barrier has been destroyed, but if the others break too, even more monsters will emerge. If that happens, none of them will survive. Suddenly the barrier vibrates again. Then Nina shouted for everyone to gather here. She called upon the north wind and frost, her longtime companions, the silence that engulfs everything, a shield more perfect than winter. Nina was able to create a huge barrier, then ran to Adrian, who had woken up. Louis held him and asked how he was. Nina shouted if Adrian was okay. Adrian raised his tired gaze and saw Nina. He immediately asked how she was. "Her legs are fine." Nina laughed and said, "Seriously, she should be asking him such questions." Adrian replied, "He is fine, completely fine," Nina asked, "and this is what he calls fine." They were the closest to the explosion site, so it's a miracle that they survived, that it happened at all. Adrian was gloomier than usual. He said that a cultist had entered the temple. The priest checked the barrier and said that there was a problem and then asked him for help. When he began to sing, Adrian listened, suspecting nothing, and did not even realize that it was a spell, which explodes everything around. As a result of the explosion, terrible miasma spread, and the members of the order collapsed in an instant. Of course, Adrian began to blame himself for everything. He said that it was all his fault. He made such a stupid decision. Adrian apologized to Nina. Nina smiled and said, "It's not Adrian's fault. Everything is fine. Nina will fix everything." She asked Jean and Louis to take the young master and evacuate. Jin shouted, "Don't joke like that. How can they leave her here?" Nina apologized. And she explained that they didn't have time for chatter. This ice shield wouldn't last long. Unfortunately, her frost and the north wind alone will not be able to reseal the barrier. But she has one good idea and she asks to trust her. Adrian asked. She is going to summon a spirit of a higher rank. The barrier hasn't been completely destroyed yet, so if they use the power of the Supreme Spirit, they can stop it. The best solution right now, Jin said, was to call upon a spirit with whom she had no contract. A price equal to his power must be paid. Adrian's expression darkened even more. Then he asked if Nina was planning to sacrifice her body right now. Unfortunately, Adrian was right. This is exactly what Nina had in mind. Nina laughed awkwardly and said that they had no choice, only there they could sort everything out. She doesn't want them to just die here. Louis and Jean didn't know what to say. Adrian stepped forward and said, "Okay, then he will do it. If this is the same method, then he can. After all, he is also a summoner." The young lord asked everyone to run with Nina, but Nina caught him when Adrian almost fell. Then Nina said, "Just look at him. Adrian himself can barely stand on his feet because of the poison. And besides, he is the young master. She is the only one who can do this." Adrian said at least he won't leave her alone. If he dies, they will die together. But Nina said that Adrian must leave. Someone must report what happened. If Adrian dies, what will happen to the knights? Who fled, abandoning their commander before Adrian said anything. Nina hugged him, and she asked Adrian to fulfill his duty. Life is a responsibility, and survival is a duty. Adrian said nothing for a couple of seconds. Because he thought, she's being stupid, all this doesn't matter, what does he care about everyone else? How can he live without her? If he loses Nina, he will have no one left. He doesn't want this. He asks Nina not to leave him. Probably Nina didn't take this into account. Nina wants to help Adrian, even if it means sacrificing herself, but she didn't take into account that she had become such an important part of Adrian's life. By doing so, she caused Adrian unbearable pain, and the shield broke at that moment. Jin immediately grabbed Adrian, and Louis shouted that the commander had to run. But Adrian didn't want this. He turned around and called Nina, but she stood firmly in her place. Adrian continued calling her name, then she finally turned around and smiled at him. Nina asked the north wind to take care of everything and take them to a safe place. Adrian's screams were already hard to hear. It seemed the time had come to make the final push. Huge and terrible monsters began to crawl out of the barrier, even a monster the size of a house. Nina complained that the monsters were impatient, but they would come back eventually. She began to write on the ground with a sword and asked for a raging flame, a heat that would burn and explode everything around. The endlessly spreading fire offers her her flesh, her blood, her bones. Nina felt a bit of a terrifying, enormous presence. It was a little scary. By this time, Adrian should already be far away in a safe place. No matter what happens, Louis and Jean will protect him along with her. The seal of this goddess appeared on the earth, and this power overwhelmed Nina. She fell to her knees. So, everything is all right. She brings her soul to her ever-burning altar. When the spell was complete, Nina asked the crimson flame to descend. Nina closed her eyes. She was already prepared for the end. She thought that such an ending was not so bad. She liked this. A light of incredible dimensions appeared at the place of the seal. The sunlight was so bright that it was impossible to distinguish night from day. It was clearly visible even from the edge of the purple forest. Adrian and the boys were safe. As soon as Nina's wind disappeared, Adrian fell to the ground in despair. The body began to shake non-stop. Grief filled Adrian. It is impossible to describe the pain of a person who has lost a loved one. The figure of Nina smiling flashed through Adrian's memory, and he wondered if the sacred name could not retain its power. Then its owner will have a hard time. Adrian began to beat the ground. He was angry, or rather, he was furious. He started screaming to himself, "Why?" he clearly said. "Why Nina? Why again because of him?" The guys stood aside this whole time. It was hardly possible to find the right words at that moment. Louis said they should return to the fortress to take care of the commander's wounds. Carol is there now, so they should return quickly, but Adrian sharply refused. He said that they would go straight to the village and prepare to activate the Great Barrier. Too many monsters had already been released. "This needs to be stopped," Louis agreed, but Jean shouted, "What are they even talking about? He doesn't understand anything. The first thing they need to do is go back there. They need to check if Nina is safe, if she is alive." "They don't know for sure that if Nina is alive," Adrian interrupted Jin and said, "then she will return to him. If she was alive, she would return to him." Adrian believed in this. Despite the terrible despair, he still believed in her. Jin, still in shock, didn't know what to say. He looked up at the sky again and saw the light that Nina created. Adrian, on the contrary, tried not to raise his head. He believed that without Nina, his life was over. So those who took Nina from her will lose everything. Hatred filled Adrian's heart. What Nina feared so much may still happen. Adrian is ready to become the killer of his family. With only 3 members of the Order surviving, Adrian returned to the Black Shield Fortress and attempted to activate the Great Barrier that protected the entire village. Jin and Louis dealt with the Belacs who had escaped from the Purple Forest and helped Kirill evacuate the residents. After the long battle was over, the boys returned to the forest, where there was only a single shining sword, also gold and silver emblems covering the destroyed barrier. The boys didn't find Nina there, and meanwhile a strange rumor spread throughout the village. That night, when the barrier collapsed and everything around was filled with miasmas and Belacs, which left behind only despair. And in that moment of despair and tragedy, the dark night lit up as if it were morning. People who a minute later were running away in panic froze in place when they saw the sun. The light was so blinding that it was impossible to look at, like the shining sun that saved them. But their human son woke up in a strange place. Nina became a little girl again. She would return to the form she had when she lost her sister and brother. When Nina looked around, she asked where she was. For some reason, this place looked so familiar. Suddenly, Nina was called. When she turned around, she saw her beloved brother and sister. Whether it was an illusion or not, we don't know, but Nina was very happy to see her family. The sister and brother came to Nina. Nina could not believe her eyes. Unlike Nina, these two were not surprised. The brother put a wreath on her and said that they so wanted to give her a gift, and the sister asked if she was having fun. And she said that the wreath suits her very well, as expected. Their youngest is so pretty. It's not even clear who the real flower is here. Nina finally realized what was happening and started crying. The brother asked why she was crying. Maybe he should give her a piggyback ride. The sister asked if the sister should hug her tightly. Nina threw herself into the arms of her sister and brother. Her sister asked when she had managed to grow so much and become so heavy. Through her tears, Nina said she was so happy, but it was just a dream. That's why she was crying. It doesn't matter if it's a dream or a moment from life flashing before her eyes, she still wants to say it. Thank them for loving her so much, even though she caused so much trouble, even though it was late, but she always wanted to say it. The sister replied, "Nina is the sweetest girl in the world. It was hard for her, right? Now she can return to them." No matter how much Nina loved her family, she understood that she could not return to their home now. Nina said, "Not now, her friend, she can't leave Adrian alone. She can't go back to the time when her sister and brother were here. And she won't come back, because now she has a new home and her family is in it. So she doesn't know who makes her see this dream, see her deceased loved ones." Nina looked at her beloved family again, and they looked at her. And when the time came, Nina told the one who created this dream to come out now. As soon as Nina said this, sister and brother and all reality turned upside down. All her memories turned into leaves and the book slammed shut, and Nina grew up again. 2 strangers appeared in front of Nina. Nina asked who they were. The fiery girl answered. She was sorry. It seemed Nina's memories had gotten mixed up while they were skimming through her soul. Nina was pleased, asked the fiery girl as soon as she touched Nina. She began to cry and replied that she was glad to see her sister and brother after so many years of separation. Nina thought how charming it was. She immediately felt sympathy, but who are these two? No matter how you look at it, they are not people. Maybe they are spirits that she summoned. Why does everything seem so familiar to her? Nina said. She knows it will sound strange. But having never met anywhere before, they feel strangely familiar. Ice answered, this time for the first time. Then Nina asked what they meant. Then, it means there was the last time, the fire girl answered. They were truly surprised. By bringing a spell that offers both body and soul, it seemed to her that they had truly become fallen spirits. Nina became worried and asked if that was not how it should be done. The Iceman replied that if she believed in them, that was enough. Only fallen spirits demand such a thing. Well, it was easier than Nina thought. Just believing is the simplest, but at the same time the most difficult condition. And then Nina shouted, "Does this mean that she is not dead? She is fine. They will not say that she cannot come back." Ice Girl replied, "So let's start with the conclusion. She is not dead, they just wanted to see the person." Ready to sacrifice even his soul, so they took the shortcut. Nina was too happy and didn't even listen to anything. Nina was too happy. Then she asked if she could ask one more question. Still, who are they? No, what kind of spirits are they? The Ice Girl and the Fire Girl remained silent. Then they looked at each other and suddenly the fiery one began to either cry or laugh. And the ice cube became even more distant, so Nina quickly apologized and added that she honestly had no idea. At least she can roughly guess who they are. She is the one Nina called last time, right? Eternally blazing, huge flame, the sun. The girl smiled. It's the ice cube's turn. Nina doesn't remember calling on him at all. Fire said that she would give a hint. It was he who uses her longtime companion, the North Wind and Frost, as his shield. That's why he was able to get to Nina before her. Nina looked at him, and she asked if he was really Winter. The Iceman answered, yes. Then little Nina apologized for not recognizing him, but the second of the smile was replaced by horror. Nina screamed, "No, he's not Winter, right?" The stronger the spirit concept itself, the higher its rank, as they represent the sun and winter. This means that by their nature they are higher spirits. In most myths, they would be considered deities. And yet, such creatures, Nina called both. The sun answered, of course. It was a rather reckless act. The human body could not fully withstand her strength. Therefore, there were many damaged areas. If it had not been for the Winter, it would have burned to the ground. Winter added, "True, fortunately he prevented damage to her soul, but her body needs to be restored. It won't be easy, so it will take some time." Nina became nervous. If the sun and Winter say long, how long will it really be? Nina nevertheless thanked them. She's not sure how long she'll have to wait, but if she relaxes a little and lazes around, the time will pass quickly. But it was not to be, the sun said by the way about this, and Nina moved to the arena. Sun was thinking about teaching Nina fencing while they waited, in person. It's a good idea, especially since this way Nina won't get bored. Refusals are not accepted. The sun's lessons were merciless as Nina fell, completely exhausted. After it was trampled into the ground, the sun brought it back to normal. Endless training. There is no concept of a day here, so Nina doesn't even know how much time has passed. Nina believed that it was 1,000 times more difficult than living in the Order of Dark Nights. Little Nina missed her friends very much, but she still continued to train. The sun looked meaningfully at Nina and said, "Now at least one can look at her without tears." Nina shouted. The sun taught her fencing, shooting, spear throwing, countering magic, and even horse riding, which means at least. The sun replied, before her skills were just terrible. Since she summons the sun and Winter, she must be the best. It's natural, Nina replied. They drove her so hard that even an idiot would have turned into a genius. Sun replied that if she continued like this, she would not share the good news. Nina happily asked if it was really ready. They had arrived for Winter. Winter apologized for making Nina wait too long. Her new body is finally ready. Nina fell down and started crying with happiness. Winter asked how brutal the training was. The sun wanted to teach her some more, but nothing could be done. Winter had made Nina's body stronger. But since they created the body, changes occurred in appearance. Nina asked if they would recognize her. Winter answered, "Not so strong, only the color of her hair and eyes." And one more thing, time here flows differently than in the human world. When she opens her eyes, about 2 years will have passed from that day. He asked if Nina would be okay. Nina admitted that she thought much more time had passed. She wondered if they knew, the feeling that she had been training for at least 100 years. She wondered if 100 years had really passed. Their faces said that it had. Winter replied that in any case everyone would be worried, so she should return quickly. The sun added, "Nina worked hard. It was nice to spend time with her." Nina asked if she would see them again. They replied that even if not, they would always be there. It was time to say goodbye. The sun told Nina to close her eyes and take a deep breath. And at that moment, when Nina was already returning back, the sun asked, "Isn't Nina interested in why she still has those memories?" Nina replied, "Not really." She already knows the answer, obviously because she was supposed to meet Adrian. The sun smiled and said, "Right," an answer in Nina's style. The magic of the sun slowly began to disappear. Then Nina asked if it was all over and she could now open her eyes. However, neither winter nor the sun gave Nina an answer, so she quietly opened her eyes. And as soon as Nina did this, her beautiful red hair turned white. Nina was so glad to be back, happy to see the purple forest. She continued to thank the winter and the sun. She looked at her reflection. Now her hair was white as snow, and her eyes were golden as the sun. Her previous body was destroyed, suffering from the effects of poisoning, but due to the body being newly made, it is incredibly durable. And this, the barrier that collapsed 2 years ago, she sees the crests of the sun and the winter glow. The spirits must have sealed it. Nina complained a little about how hard they worked on her. But thanks to the sun and winter, Nina saved everyone and survived herself. She is greatly indebted to them. 2 years later, perhaps because the sky looks the same as it did that night, she still thinks she is dreaming. But Adrian hasn't killed his family yet. Yes, that should happen around this time. They are an absolutely terrible family, but that is precisely why Nina does not want Adrian to stain his hands with their blood. Nina decided to put these thoughts aside for later. What was the point of tormenting herself over this now? She needs to hurry. Everyone must be waiting for her already. Nina used the northern wind, and as Winter promised, her body really was stronger. And it's also gotten faster. It's the same magic as before, but much faster now. Nina already sees the fortress ahead, but unfortunately the monsters attacked her again. "They attack when everyone should be sleeping," Nina shouted. "What a bunch of shameless bastards." However, Nina currently had no weapon and was looking for something she could use as a sword. Then she saw the branches and decided that they would do. Nina jumped and literally flew into the sky. It was amazing how high she jumped. The fortress was literally under Nina's feet. Now she feels that the spirits are not just helping her, but now they are one with them. It was time for some practice. She attacked him. The first one was ready. Immediately, 2 more attacked. Nina deftly dodged their attacks and attacked them. The monsters died instantly, and then Nina was surprised, and it was all somehow too simple, she thought. It seems that all this hellish training, which lasted for about 100 years, was not in vain. Nina thanked the sun again. Nina decided to quickly finish with the rest. Suddenly she noticed that there were people in the fortress. Then she shouted, "Members of the order, don't worry, Nina has come to help." Little Nina, although she had become stronger, was still often distracted, but she still managed to dodge. But the monster's blow caused Nina's magic to disappear, and the fire interferes with the northern wind. Nina began to fall, and at that moment the familiar magic eliminated that monster. Little Nina fell to the ground quite easily, all thanks to the north wind. Nina began to breathe heavily. It seemed like she was disappointed. She stamped her feet and screamed, "What a disgrace!" She so wanted to make an impressive appearance. The knights who had been watching from the side finally approached Nina. A familiar voice quietly asked, "Nina?" Then Nina looked up. A young gentleman stood before her. Adrian had matured, but his sad eyes remained the same. Despite the slight changes in appearance, Adrian was able to recognize Nina. A little earlier, Adrian was informed that a group of Belacs was approaching the fortress. Adrian said there are more monsters than reported. "We need to be on guard. At this rate they are being attacked." The 3 of them would have to deal with them somehow, Adrian thought as he told Jin not to split up. When he noticed Jin staring at the sky, Adrian asked what Jin was doing. Jin couldn't believe his eyes. He pointed to the sky and asked, "There, the commander does not think that it is a person. And this person looks very much like their Nina." The moment Adrian saw Nina's smile, light filled his darkness. "And now, the time has come for the reunion?" Nina asked. She was not late. Adrian didn't answer, and Nina, a little awkwardly, asked if she could even say that. Considering that 2 years have passed, he has matured so much during this time. Adrian jumped up from his seat and rushed to hug Nina. He repeated her name, even though Adrian had matured. The softness of his soul did not harden in the least, and through his tears he asked how she had ended up here. Adrian's trembling voice trailed off as he bit his lips. He remembered again the day when Nina sacrificed herself. From that very day, Adrian wanted to ask Nina 1,000 times. He couldn't understand how she could leave him alone. Now Adrian is much bigger than Nina, but now he is shaking like a cute puppy. Adrian asked, knowing him, "How could she? How could she?" Nina called Adrian. And looking into each other's eyes, Nina apologized to him. Adrian froze for a moment. The tears finally stopped. And when the warmth surrounded him, he wondered why Nina was apologizing to him. What did Nina do wrong for sacrificing herself to save him? No, for giving everything she had, or for coming back like this. Taking Nina's hand in his, Adrian said, "No, Nina, she's back. And that's more than enough. The reunion went great." Our big guy, Gene, also turned out to be a softie. He couldn't stop crying. Of course he was happy that Nina came back. Hugging her tightly, he shouted, "You fool!" Nina said, "At least she looks healthy?" Jin shouted. These are his words. As Jin continued to cry and say what he thought, she died. Nina hurried to Louis. She greeted him, and the ever-calm Louis said, "God, is this really the Nina he knows?" And he asked if anything hurt. Her eyes and hair worry him. What happened to her during this time? Nina shouted. Finally, she lived. When someone asks about it, everyone's attention. Just as Nina was about to begin her story, her stomach began to rumble, so she suggested eating first. While they ate, she told them everything, from her encounter with the higher spirits to the story of more than 100 years of rigorous training. She told him everything she knew. Jin, all in a sweat, said, "Frankly, this is such absurdity. It's hard to believe, but seeing how she wolfs down the food, it immediately becomes clear that she's definitely not a ghost." "You'll just have to believe it," Nina muttered. She was terribly hungry after that. How did she spend so much energy? Technically, she hadn't eaten for 100 years, and she hadn't slept either. As soon as Nina remembered this, she instantly felt sleepy. Then Adrian said that now she should get some sleep. Tomorrow they would need to return to the estate. Everyone must be tired, but Nina wanted to sit with them a little longer. Adrian replied that they would be together tomorrow too. Nina thought for a moment and shouted joyfully. Exactly then she suggested that everyone get in together. Just like on a hike, Jean wasn't eager to lay out the blankets, but Louis thought it would be a good memory. And so they all lay down on the floor, Jean muttering that since Nina had come, they could increase the food budget. The sweet couple continued to communicate. Even in their sleep, Nina looked at them and couldn't get enough of them. Jin always tossed and turned in his sleep. She was happy to return, the same voices, the same laughter. It seems like they broke up just yesterday, but 2 years have already passed. Nina's gaze moved from the boys to Adrian, and she began to examine his face. A face that had lost its youthful charm. Adrian had become so tall, and her hands have become so big that Nina can't even wrap her arms around them. Just think, she was away from Adrian for so long, but now that she is with him, now everything is okay. She endured all this to come back to him. So now they will always be together. Joy filled her. She pressed herself against Adrian and finally fell asleep. And our Adrian did not sleep. His bloodshot eyes watched Nina. He noticed that her hair had grown a lot. His heart sank as he listened to Nina's stories, even though she spoke happily and proudly about her training. Adrian just wondered how she managed to survive all this, whether she ever regretted it or wanted to give up. Thinking about this, Adrian became sad again. He wondered if Nina was offended by him. Taking her hand, Adrian squeezed it tightly and begged if this was all a dream. Then he wishes that this dream would never end. Morning came. Adrian was the last to wake up. His tired gaze immediately began to search for Nina. The moment he didn't see her next to him, Adrian panicked. The cold enveloped him. An eerie feeling filled him. Adrian repeated her name and stood up to look for her, but he hesitated in front of the door. It seemed he was afraid that he wouldn't find Nina behind the door, but luckily for him, Nina was there. She smiled at him with the same bright smile and said hello to Adrian. Nina quickly noticed that Adrian was covered in cold sweat and became scared. She ran to him and said, Adrian was fast asleep, so she went out first. How does he feel? Bring her some warm water? Adrian finally exhaled. Even after the night has passed, Nina is still here, next to him. Later, they all got together and set off. Nina asked why only 3 came to the battle yesterday. There were so many Belaks it was dangerous, Louis replied. They wanted to keep the damage to a minimum. We wanted to solve this problem quickly with a small elite team. In fact, they hadn't planned for his lordship to join them. Nina interrupted Louis at that moment. She screamed, Louis just said his lordship, really it can't be. During her absence, the young gentleman became a duke. Adrian calmly replied, yes, that's right. First, Nina congratulated Adrian, but then she thought, how exactly did Adrian become a duke? Of course, she assumed the worst. Hadrian was not next in line to the throne according to history, unless he killed his family and took that place. Jin said it all happened so fast, it happened the day after the barrier incident. It was the first time he had seen his lordship in such anger. He would never have thought that Adrian would draw his sword in the meeting hall. The old duke's face became so pale. Nina was horrified by this story. She began to get hysterical that the bloody massacre that she so wanted to prevent had still happened. Louis said Jean was joking, although it was difficult for everyone to contain his lordship that day. Nina screamed. "So what happened?" she asked. "Did Adrian really pull out his sword? And what happened next?" Adrian continued to awkwardly avoid her gaze. Finally, he answered, "He was kicked out of the ducal estate." Nina only became more confused. And Adrian explained that right after he drew his sword, knights burst into the room. Then he thought that now they would all either die or kill these knights. Adrian's hands were shaking with anger at that moment. It seemed like he could kill everyone there alone. But unexpectedly, Adrian relaxed his hand, and in the end he decided to simply return to the fortress. And not to stick his neck out, all because he remembered what Nina told him the last time. Nina said that Adrian had to survive. She sacrificed herself for this. After returning to the fortress, he reorganized the Order of the Dark Knights. They could not just disappear. They have already experienced death so many times that they cannot count. Who knows what would have happened to the Order if not for Captain Adrian? And then one day a plague spread throughout the Empire. By the way, Nina knew nothing about the plague. And it's not surprising. In the book, the story begins with the appearance of Fiona. So much of Adrian's past, a minor character, is hidden, which is why, except for a few important events, she knows little. Because of this plague, the Duke and the young master died, and now the only legitimate heir is His Grace Adrian. And what happened next is not difficult to guess. Even before the end of the funeral, the Duchess entered into an alliance with the Duke's younger brother. Claiming that his lordship would poison the Duke and the young master, she tried to confine them to the estate when they arrived for the funeral. Nina shouted, "They could have handled the poisoning perfectly well themselves." That's exactly how it all began, Louis thought, the final battle for the throne in the duchy. Most of the vassals sided with the Duke's younger brother, so it seemed that Hadrian had no chance, and yet his lordship Adrian never lost. Well, less than 6 months had passed before everything was finished, and His Grace Adrian became Duke. Of course, there was some bloodshed, but the main thing is that Adrian himself didn't get dirty. Louis was impressed then, but at the same time scared. It seemed to him that he was riding on the back of a ferocious tiger and rushing straight to his death. But now, maybe he can finally allow himself to breathe freely, because the only man who can tame this tiger has returned. Indeed, in front of Nina, Adrian looked more like a kitten than a tiger, Nina said. A lot happened while she was gone. However, things are not as bad as Nina thought. Adrian did not stain his hands with the blood of the family, and the Order of the Dark Knights seemed to have survived, despite many events, a future she wanted to change. It's gradually changing, it's good. Now they can use the wealth and land as they want. But it was not to be. The little girl thought that the hard times were over and happy days were beginning. But in the end, I realized that they were still in the same big hole they were in before. Nina shouted out how poor they were. It seemed very poor. Things in the duchy did not smell of happiness. A little later, Kirill came into the hall and said that he hurried here as soon as he learned about Nina's return. But instead of a happy greeting, he saw a sad Nina and asked what the hell was going on. Little Nina raised her head and ran to him, asking that so much time had passed, but what should they do? Kirill told Nina to either be happy that she sees him or cry. She had to choose one. Nina said that she learned everything on the way. They say that the young gentleman even inherited the debts of the late Duke. And on top of that, the fortress's territory is extremely poor, because nothing grows there, and Kirill is the only one she can trust now. Her little garden is still intact, right? She needs to pick out some valuable herbs, Kirill suddenly asked. They didn't tell her about this. Louis and Jean began to whisper that they thought it would be too much of a shock, and that if she found out, she would faint. Nina shouted, "Why are they whispering? What's the matter?" Jin answered embarrassedly, "In general, there is no land. The late Duke lost a third of the duchy. It seems the former Duke was quite the loser." As they thought, little Nina lost consciousness upon hearing this, but she still had the strength to swear. She shouted at how they could have allowed this to happen. Louis asked if Nina knew about the exchange tournament, right? Nina replied, yes, of course. Crystal Well, the area between Count Lav's lands and the Duke's estate of Rouvine. It was in this match that they fought every year for the rights to use the site with the Love family. The Dark Knights were banned from competing every year because they could not represent the territory. Rumor has it they lost every year. They promised land rights in an exchange tournament. Nina shouted, they lost every year. So why did the Duke decide to do this? It turned out the Duke owed them. Now Nina is plunged into despair. They have no land. She doesn't even know where to start. And in this empire, noble titles depend on what territory you own. So if their lands are reduced, they will even lose the ducal title. Nina thought about what to do. In such a situation, what can she do at all? But then Adrian said that the ownership rights have not yet been fully transferred. This year marks the 8th tournament, so if they win at least once in the next 2 years, they will be able to take the lands back. But the guys didn't think so. They were in the minority, so they had practically no chance of winning. Then Nina shouted that it was for nothing that she had worried and suggested that they just drink. Jin replied that it wasn't that easy. They would have to fight in teams of 10, but after that massacre, most of them retired. So they don't have that many people left. Meanwhile, the Knights of Lava have many elite warriors and the best equipment. Nina said it didn't matter. She could handle them alone. At first, the boys looked at each other and then smiled and said that if anyone else had said this, they would not have believed it. But after seeing Nina fight yesterday, they feel that Nina can defeat everyone. Nina grinned proudly. The guys started drinking and chatting cheerfully with each other. But in the end, Nina got drunk. And in this state, she said, in any case, now they don't have to worry. And drink in peace. First, they need to earn money by selling rare plants. And then gather capable people. Nina asked Adrian not to worry anymore. Nina returned, which meant that everything would be fine now Adrian was pleased with Nina's concern. Then Adrian said, just as expected, Nina should become the captain. Drunk Nina, it seems, did not fully understand everything and screamed, of course, as expected. Before Nina realized what had happened, Adrian asked Luis to bring what he had asked for earlier. Nina asked what it was, some kind of pile of documents that were hard to read. Adrian answered, even if you do it informally, it's still a lot of trouble, but in simple terms. Nina Ladell, he makes her happy with the last name Ladell? Nina looked at Adrian in surprise, who looked at her with a tender gaze and said, he appoints her as his captain of the Dark Knights. And that's when Nina sobered up and realized what was happening. She started screaming, why her? Adrian replied, he can't hold the position of commander forever. Then Nina shouted, if so, what about Louis, the vice captain? Louis replied, he thinks his current position suits him better. Nina shouted, what about Jin? Jin replied, how can he do such a hard job? If they insist, he could at least take the place of vice captain. Nina asked if that was okay. Such an important decision is made so suddenly, Adrian replied. He did not make it suddenly. For a long time, he thought that this position was destined to be hers. Nina had one weakness, Adrian's sweet smile. When he looks and smiles at her like that, she cannot refuse him. She agreed and asked if the last name Adrian had given her was Ladell or Ladell. Nina's carelessness slipped past Adrian, and the guys asked if it was really that important now. Nina tried to explain that if there is a second name, then there must also be a fiefdom. Adrian laughed. And then he answered, of course, the last name is Dell, and the middle name is Law. The title is Viscountess, Nina asked, so that means they won't frighten her wherever she goes. That's good. She knelt down and officially accepted the documents. Nina smiled happily and shouted, now she is also a noble woman. Kirill screamed that his ears would bleed if she continued screaming like that. In their days, Dark Knights are treated as villains. Everyone will be surprised when they find out that this noisy kid is the new captain. Nina said that nothing could be done, since they couldn't be the main characters anyway. You can easily play the role of villains. Jin answered why they can't be the main characters. They simply have to be them. Kirill offered to fill the glasses and asked Nina to tell him about her encounter with the spirits. Nina enthusiastically told everything. A little later, she woke up in her bed. She still doesn't know how to drink. She didn't even understand when they brought her into the room. Then she noticed that she was wearing pajamas. She had been sleeping while they were changing her and hadn't even noticed it. Her head was splitting. She was trying to remember what happened. Then she touched the documents. Then she remembered how Adrian gave her a surname and title. She looked at these documents and read her new name. The name Adrian chose for her, she liked it so much she suddenly thought she can't stand it. She suddenly missed Adrian madly, who, by the way, was not sleeping. It seemed he was developing a new strategy. Suddenly, he noticed a glow coming from the window, so he got up and walked towards it. Adrian didn't seem surprised. He smiled sweetly and greeted Nina. Nina flew into his room using her abilities. Adrian smiled sweetly at her, and so Nina asked. Adrian was not surprised at all. She came in and Adrian replied, "Well, who else could have come in through the window? He was used to her coming to him this way." Adrian asked if she couldn't sleep. Nina replied that she woke up in the middle of the night and suddenly wanted to see him. She is very honest in her feelings. She saw chess and Adrian suggested playing. Nina didn't know how to play chess. She asked Adrian to sit down. Adrian didn't understand why, but he obeyed. As soon as Adrian sat down on the sofa, Nina grabbed his leg and started giggling. She wanted to be spoiled. They hadn't seen each other for so long. Adrian said that if she sat like that, all he could see was her hair, and she wants to see her face. Then Nina jumped on the sofa and said that since Adrian insists on it, she doesn't mind. Nina asked who changed her into a nightgown. Adrian answered, "Kirill." Nina asked if everything was really so bad that they didn't even have a maid. "Who can be trusted with something like this?" Adrian replied. "If you don't like it, then he can arrange it." Nina replied, "That's not the point." She just thought it was a good chance to gradually fill this estate with capable people. Since Adrian is busy, she can do it herself because now she is a lady. Adrian smiled and replied, "Okay." In fact, he already has several candidates in mind, and they have raised quite a bit of money through savings. He will give her freedom of action in both cases. She can do as she pleases. After listening to Adrian, Nina smirked and wanted to tease him. So he asked if Adrian trusted her too much, but Adrian wasn't at all against it. He took her hand and said honestly that he trusted Nina even more than he trusted himself. Slowly, Adrian approached Nina and looked intently into her eyes. Adrian didn't break his gaze, his face closer than usual. Nina blushed, but not from the alcohol. She thought Adrian was too close. Blushing, she pushed Adrian away and, laughing awkwardly, said it was a bit hot in here. Maybe open the window wider. In any case, thank you for Adrian trusting her. She will do everything in her power. She spoke a little hesitantly. It seemed like she would be a little nervous in front of Adrian now. Adrian took out something and said that he actually wanted to give Nina something else. Nina opened the box and saw her old red ribbons. She asked how he got them. Adrian said that on that day, he found out what had happened and went to look for Nina. He found a ribbon flying on the ground and picked it up, but when he saw her, he didn't have the courage to tell her. He felt so pathetic that he couldn't stitch her up. And guilty because she suffered because of him after she disappeared 2 years ago. He regretted a lot of things, and therefore wanted to reward her with achievements and a title someday, and also to return her ribbon, but from now on, he no longer wants to live in regret. That's why he will repeat this again and again. Nina is the one he trusts the most. For him, Nina is special. When Adrian said this, Nina froze. Because the Adrian that Nina remembered from the original story didn't trust anyone. The most aristocratic Duke of Rovina, polite and elegant, but at the same time a man capable of plunging a sword into your back. There was nothing to be done about it. Hadrian was surrounded by enemies on all sides. There was no one he could trust, but they had gone so far, to the point of trust. What we are waiting for will not happen until Nina said that then she also wants to give him a gift. She pulled Adrian towards her and said, "Adrian has worked hard, so as a reward he will lie on her lap." Nina asked who bothered him while she was gone. Let him tell her. She would scold them all for him. Adrian didn't expect this. After all, Adrian will kill whoever he wants without blinking an eye. But such support made Adrian happy and he laughed, then asked, who should he ask to scold first? One night won't be enough. A little time passed and there was silence in the room. Nina began to look at Adrian's face. She thought he was incredibly handsome. He had been good-looking as a child, but somehow he had become even more handsome. Whoever ended up taking him would be incredibly lucky, Nina thought. But would she really be willing to give Adrian to anyone else? It seems like our little girl hasn't yet figured out how she feels about Adrian. Nina kept replaying in her head the moment when Adrian said that he trusted Nina. She doesn't want to be the only one he trusts. She wants Adrian's world to become wider, so that Adrian could see all its beauty and immensity, and with this, she was going to help him. A little later, Adrian brought Nina some warm milk. But as soon as he entered the room, he saw Nina sleeping. This is not surprising, given how much has happened today. Adrian looked at her with tenderness in his eyes. Does Adrian know what he feels for Nina? He remembered the day when he believed that he had finally lost Nina. Words are not enough to describe how Adrian regretted it, again and again, and swore. What he will do is to make sure that those people who put Nina through this, experienced the same despair of losing everything, and he was ready for it. Adrian is not the cute puppy he looks like with Nina. Adrian did everything slowly. He was in no hurry, quietly hiding in the darkness. He got rid of those who disagreed, for the sake of ideal revenge, exactly the kind of Adriana Nina knew from novels. Now that Nina is back, perhaps the cultists will start acting again. And Adrian is more than ready for such an outcome of the event. He is ready to start a new game for his queen. It seems that of the two, Adrian is the one who knows what he feels for Nina. In the morning, Kirill was rushing Nina, but she was still getting ready. Kirill complained that she kept repeating that she wanted to see the herbs. Nina apologized and explained that she had overindulged yesterday, and that's why she overslept. Nina put on her red ribbons again, which her sister and brother had given her, and came into a real glass greenhouse. Everything looks expensive. Nina was worried that the ducal house had to pay a tidy sum for it. Kirill proudly replied that he had squeezed every last drop of juice out of the duke for her sake, and that the herbs he had brought from Nina's garden were planted here. Soon they will hand them over to the citizens and will grow all the herbs in even greater quantities. Of course, provided that the ducal house buys back all the successfully grown herbs. That's up to their captain, isn't it? She said she would return their lands, Nina proudly said. Then no problem. Let them look forward to the exchange tournament next month. Kirill said that he believes in her and that he is also developing a new medicine, but it is hard for him to do it alone. It would be nice if someone could help, but finding someone willing to do such work is not easy. The ideal person would be someone who, upon seeing a report on herbal medicine, would rush here headlong. Suddenly, Nina remembered someone and said that she knew someone and would try to contact him. Nina thought about the great sage of the Bluestone Island and, concurrently, the main character of the novel. She said she needed to get permission from Louis, so she would let me know when she got an answer. Nina also said that she was going to the Purple Forest and asked, "Did Kirill need anything?" And Kirill needed a lot of things. And he took this offer very seriously, submitting a bunch of documents he said she should have asked earlier. So Nina asked why there were so many. Kirill answered because some of them had been gone for 2 years. And he collected all of this himself. That's why irritation was replaced by satisfaction. Of course, she was touched by the fact that he was waiting for her. Kirill found kisses disgusting and asked her to hurry into the forest. Nina collected everything and went out. She was so happy when she realized that her friends had been working hard all this time. Everyone did what they were good at, and each of them tried their best during these 2 years. Nina can't just sit back either. In fact, an interesting thought came to her this morning. In the Purple Forest, besides the herbs and Mune steel, there is another gold mine hidden. The difficulty level is incredibly high. However, if she gets him, they will live a luxurious life. Nina is already immersed in her fantasies. And she was eager to complete the task, but unexpectedly, Jin said that he would also go with her. She said that she was going to the Purple Forest to find something, remembering the rule of going in groups of 2. That's why he wants to go with her. Nina asked if it was necessary. She was fine with it. Before she could finish speaking, Jin looked at her with a fiery gaze, and then she quickly agreed. Nina warned that she didn't know how many days they would stay there. The sun set, and Nina asked if Jin had collected all the herbs. Jin answered yes melancholically, and then Nina thought he was acting a little strange. He hardly spoke. The sun had set, so they made camp and sat in awkward silence in front of the fire. Finally, Jin spoke. Tomorrow they were going deeper into the forest, beyond the barrier. He had never been there before. Nina asked if he was worried it would be dangerous, but there were things they could only find there. Jin asked if the spirits had told her this, not knowing what to answer. Nina lied that yes, and Kirill had asked for something. Then Jin answered briefly again, "Okay," and fell silent again. It seemed that something was really wrong. He said almost nothing and rarely looked at Nina, and now he even sighed loudly. Suddenly he screamed, "He can't do this anymore, it was more like him." Nina screamed, "What's wrong with him?" Suddenly a flushed Jin asked, "Nina can't look at him." Jin shouted if she could spare him a minute. Was it possible we were going to get a confession, but not from the one we expected? Nina asked what was the matter. Jin stuttered and replied, "Of course, he wanted to practice with the sword." Let's go, guys. Everything is not as it seemed. It's time to wash ourselves with holy water. Nina asked if Jin wanted her to teach him fencing. Jin sheepishly admitted, yes, she has become incredibly strong, and now he is no match for her. Hell, she is probably the strongest of them. A few hours ago, when they encountered a pack of Belaks on the way here, he saw how Nina fought. It seemed as if the sword was an extension of her arm. Of course, Jin also wants to fight like that, and now Nina is his commander. And so, Jin shouted, she is the commander, isn't she? He is asking to teach him. The son taught Nina how to use the halberd, which is Jin's weapon. Teaching him is not difficult, but is it worth it for her to bother with him? Nina thought. Then she said, she doesn't know if he can handle her training regimen. It will be really hard. Suddenly, Jin shouted, he didn't care. He would do everything he could to become stronger. Jin was even shaking as he spoke. If only he had been stronger then. He would never leave her behind. After that, there was silence again. Suddenly, Jin asked, she knows that he is the second son in the merchant guild. Nina answered, yes, she heard about it. He always dodged the subject when it came to his past, so Nina stopped asking. Jin said that his family is one of those people who think that money can buy everything. Love, loyalty, trust, even life itself. For them, people without money were worth nothing. They even abandoned moral principles. If they were in the way of making a profit, because money is everything, naturally they would do everything. From loan sharking to slave trading, Jin hated it, so he ran away from home and became a mercenary. He then took out a loan for a friend he trusted, but he was betrayed and left with a huge debt. That's when he joined the Dark Knights. The pay was guaranteed, even though the work was dangerous. But at some point he also began to think that money is everything, loyalty, friendship, and love in which he once believed. They began to seem like illusions of the weak. He was fed up with everything. He couldn't even sleep without drinking. And he thought that he would live like a drunkard and eventually die in some ditch. Stabbed to death for a few coins until someone showed up, Nina asked in delight if it was her. Jin sighed and said, yes. She quickly grasps the hand that Nina offered him then. The words she said, the way Nina changed, it made him realize that what he believed was always wrong. Not only Adrian's life changed with Nina's arrival, but also Jin's. Nina saved the Dark Knights even before that terrible battle. Nina said she didn't do much. He makes her blush. Jin replied, silly girl, she doesn't even know how much she influenced him. And that's why he never wants to experience that disgusting feeling again. When he ran away, leaving Nina to die, he wants to become strong enough to fight beside her, and he tried his best in his own way, but seeing her fight, he understood. How big is the gap between them? Nina smirked and said, she really likes Jin. She's serious, she likes how honest Jin is, Jin replied sheepishly. Okay, he gets it. So whether she is going to teach him or not, Nina became more serious and answered, of course. Taking his hand, Nina declared that she would teach him everything she knew, her enthusiasm through the roof. Nina shouted that Jin had commendable determination, that she would pull herself together and would not stand on ceremony with him. She's going to put him through the same training that the son did for her. Then Jin realized that he was in the right place, but he didn't think it was important, so he agreed. The next day, the boys were hiding in the bushes, and Jin asked if this was what she was looking for. A herd of unicorns. A unicorn, a legendary beast with fur and horns that shine like black pearls. But now their population is extremely small, due to their endurance, strength, and intelligence, which are incomparable with ordinary horses. No one can tame them. In fact, the heroine found them in the original novel. Well, if you don't like it, you should have appeared earlier according to her recollections. She won't appear for another 5 years. Then the scale of events will become much larger, so the sooner they prepare, the better. Nina wanted to tame unicorns because the Dark Knights don't have decent horses right now. Jean, doubting the idea, asked the unicorns, especially the leader, who had great pride, how she was going to catch them. Nina replied that she would simply do the same thing as when taming a wild horse. Jin said it was too dangerous. We needed to gather the knights and corner them one by one. However, Nina jumped out of her seat and said that everything would work out somehow. Using the power of the north wind, Nina flew into the sky and began to examine the herd. And having noticed one, she immediately decided to act, shouting that in such moments you need to strike first. The unicorn noticed Nina, but it was too late. Nina had mounted him and put on the blindfold. The rumors were true. The power of unicorns was incredible. Of course he didn't want to give up. Nina tried to convince him that if he went with her, she would give him a lot of treats. Of course, the unicorn didn't sell out for a couple of treats and began to gallop off in an unknown direction. Nina yelled to Jean, "This might take longer than she thought. This guy seems to be a little shy. No need to worry if she doesn't come back in a day or two." Jin shouted after her that she couldn't leave like that, because if she left him so easily, what happens is that poor Jin is surrounded by a herd of ferocious unicorns who are not at all happy about the attack on their leader.